My business focuses on helping ambitious SMEs grow by transforming the way they sell. Now, whether that's through strategic planning, sales team development, or hands-on leadership as a fractional sales director.
I do understand the aspects and the area you can cover to contribute sales growth and as well as all the things that you do.
Having worked across a wide range of industries, I really feel I bring quite a balanced cross-sector perspective to my clients and to the table. And one area I see a lot, particularly in SMEs. In fact, there's some research done, around 54% of small businesses don't actually have a business plan.
As you told, there was a research as well from the Small Business Charter in the UK that many business CEOs, they have their plan on their head rather than writing it down.
Often the vision only exists in the CEO's head, and sometimes that's fine, which means there's no clear communication, alignment outside of that, or accountability across the wider team. So to make a real difference, I always start by lifting up the bonnet, as I call it, and understanding the business.
Design and embed is the two critical things that you have to do. If you are not a good designer, and if you do not know how to embed things with the culture, with the mentality, it's fell apart. Hello everyone, welcome to the Innovative Circle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shah Siddiqui, CEO of TAM Research and Innovation, Zenzi Marketing Agency and Deadbot AI. As you know, ICPcast is an initiative to bring innovative ideas, transformative strategies, and forward-thinking insight from various industries, whether it is in technology, artificial intelligence, marketing, finance, lead generation, business advisory and development, tax, accounting, or sustainability. We bring you insights from some of the brightest minds, C-level executives, and inside industry leaders who are shaping the future. In today's episode, we are thrilled to welcome Chris Silverwood, founder Coastal Tide. Those you have seen Chris with me previously in many of my webinars. Today is a special episode to bring him to talk about sales transformation for businesses. So he helps ambitious businesses unlock their full sales potentials. Over 25 years of hands-on experiences, he knows what it takes to drive real, sustainable growth and keep the momentum going. As an organization, Coastal Tide offers tailored consultancy services from strategic business planning and organizational transformation to market expansion. Their fractional sales director service gives you access to seasoned sales leadership exactly when you need it, without the cost of commitment for a full-time hire. So, to all our viewers, get ready for practical strategies, insightful discussion, and fresh ideas to help you grow, succeed, and make an impact. Hello, Chris. Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, Dr. Shah. Thank you so much for inviting me to your Innovative Circle podcast. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. As you know, that Innovative Circle podcast, we discuss with specifically our audience and as well as to the business leaders to talk to a set of questionnaire that will help our viewers to understand how you are growing your business and how you are solving the problems. So I appreciate your time today. So I wanted to start with the first questions. Could you please give a brief overview of your business and share what inspired you to enter to this field?
It's really quite simple. I mean, my business focuses on helping ambitious SMEs grow by transforming the way they sell. Now, whether that's through strategic planning, sales team development, or hands-on leadership as a fractional sales director. What really inspired me was seeing so many great businesses with real potential struggle to scale, not because of their products or people, but because they really lack structure, any defined focus, or the right sales leadership. And after working in a number of blue chip companies over the years and several high growth SMEs, I saw the opportunity to bridge that gap, bringing big business thinking into smaller organizations in a very practical, personal and results driven way. So quite entrepreneurial.
That's great because we've been helping each other nearly 2 years now. And I do understand the aspects and the area you can cover to contribute sales growth and as well as all the things that you do. Thank you very much to be a friend and as well as well-wisher. My next question to you, could you discuss the key issues in your industry and explain how your efforts are making a difference for your clients and the collaborators?
Well, look, having worked across a wide range of industries, I really feel I bring quite a balanced cross-sector perspective to my clients and to the table. And one area I see, particularly in SMEs, is a lack of a clearly defined business plan. In fact, there's some recent research done around 54% of small businesses don't actually have a business plan. Often the vision only exists in the CEO's head, and sometimes that's fine, which means there's no clear communication, alignment outside of that, or accountability across the wider team. So to make a real difference, I always start by lifting up the bonnet, as I call it, and understanding the business and what's going on. And I really start that process, initiate that process by speaking to everybody in the business. And that means from the warehouse floor to the senior leadership team. And that gives me a true sense of how the business operates and what's really going on. That way, any recommendations I make are grounded in reality and tailored to drive real sustainable progress, momentum, which is critical as a business is scaling.
And in this space, as you told earlier, that there was a research as well from the Small Business Charter in the UK that many business CEOs, they have their plan on their head rather than writing it down on a piece of paper. My connective question to you, when you help businesses to steer their growth to the next levels, is it necessary to have, the knowledge on piece of paper?
Absolutely. Absolutely it is, because, without a vision or a long-term plan, you're basically shooting into space. The critical thing is that any business, as they're looking to scale, you need to start thinking. And where the difficulty comes in is that in small businesses particularly, they don't have the time. They don't have the time to sit down and sketch out a 3 to 5 year plan, or even a 12 to 18 month plan. So it's always driven by operational challenges, problems coming all the time. Small businesses are wearing multiple hats. I'm currently working with a client where they're doing operations, they're doing finance, they're doing logistics, they're doing some marketing, so they really don't have the time. And to answer your question, it is really important, because what you do then, and even if it's a 2-year plan, what you can do from the 2-year plan is then, or a balcony view, if you like, for where the business wants to be in 2 years. You can then drill that down into what do you need to be doing in the next 12 months to enable you to be moving towards your 2-year plan. And then from the 12 months, what do you need to be doing in the next 6 months, next 90 days, next 30 days. So everything you do and everything you touch contributes to where you want to be in 2 years. So it's a really critical part, because then from that, you can drill it down into departmental accountability and responsibilities. And quite often that's missing. There's no real alignment. So to answer your question, it doesn't matter how big the business is. It's important to have an idea of what you want to do and where you want to go.
Thank you very much. That was a brief answer. My next connecting question to you: who are the clients you aim to help, and what key benefits do you deliver to them?
Well, I work with a range of clients. And the reason I say that is every single business I've worked in big corporate, I've worked in apparel, I've worked in chemical manufacturing, I've worked in the PPE industry, I've worked in electrical manufacturing and consumer healthcare. Most of the time, the challenges are exactly the same. They all face similar challenges. And as I said earlier, and I will repeat it because it is important, many SMEs are just caught up in the day-to-day stuff and they struggle to take a strategic view. So I really help them build a clear roadmap. And that's back down to what we were just discussing, i.e. 3 to 5 year vision broken down into 12 months, 90 days and monthly action plans. So everything they do connects back to the bigger picture. It's about creating clarity and direction in the chaos, which it can be quite often.
And as we know, as an SME leaders as well, working with you and working with many other businesses, we can see there is a habit for not recognizing real value that people can bring to the team. So sometimes some SME leaders, they are very much headstrong, like, okay, I think that this is the right plan. I think that this is that. So in that scenario, how they have to characterize to grow their business to the next levels? Because, when you wanted to engage someone, a person like you, I have to have the mentality to understand you and to follow you. And without that, can real change happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important whenever I approach a client that I want to embed myself into that business and for them to feel that I really understand it. Gone are the days, I'm sure it still happens, where you get a consultant coming in, they do a 50-page instruction manual basically on what you should be doing with your business, and then wave goodbye and never follow up or work to help develop that. So it's about building trust, becoming a trusted partner, and that's quite hard. That can take a bit of time, and trust really comes from delivering showing that you can deliver, whether that is commercially, and I mean immediately. So whenever I go into a client, I always help to ensure that I can start to get traction moving pretty much from day one. So and then from that, it's showing that you can be part of that planning process, and you're continually adding value to that. That's, again, it's about creating clarity in all the chaos which sometimes happens.
I really appreciate your answer, because why did I ask you this question? Because sometimes some people, they think, okay, we need a quick fix, until you understand them properly, and as well as until you become a friend of that business or CEO or anyone, real change will not happen. And the way you answer these questions, I think our viewers, you will understand that whenever you want to work with someone, the real change can only happen if both of the person are on the same page. Otherwise,
yeah, that's so true. And they've got to want change to happen. It's very different mindset. The best relationships I've had with clients that I've worked with are the ones where they say to me, Chris, I want you to be controversial with me. I want you to tell me where I'm going wrong. I want to hear, I don't want you to be a yes man. I want you to tell me that this isn't right or that isn't right. The ones that are willing to be open and vulnerable are more often than not the clients that are going to succeed in the end. The arrogance sometimes that sits around certain businesses can really be a stop sign for their growth and can limit their growth potentially. So it's about being very open and very honest and transparent in everything that I do and in that communication.
It's really fascinating, Chris, our talking. So I think our viewers, you also like to hear more about from Chris, and we're going to be having a very good session today. So my next questions: what makes your approach unique in helping these clients to achieve these outcomes?
Really good question, and I think perhaps I've answered that in some of the other areas we have talked about so far. But I feel I combine real world experience, and I'm a very practical person, with an external perspective, which helps me quickly pinpoint what's blocking growth, what's getting in the way of growth. And quite often, sometimes that can be attitudes, actually. But more importantly, I work alongside the team, not just advising from the sidelines. It's a real hands-on, sleeves rolled up approach that's focused on practical, high-impact changes that deliver measurable results. And that's what makes it stick. Everything needs to be measured. One of the areas that businesses really like is, and they don't have them. In fact, 8 out of 10 businesses I've worked with don't have a business scorecard. Now, I don't want this to sound like a very theory-based consultant approach. It's not. When I say a business scorecard, I say, what are the key metrics that business wants to measure that's going to really quantify their success? And are they measured on a regular basis? And then everybody's accountable. Businesses, and I've worked with, I've been working with a relatively small business recently. Prior to that, I think there was a business turning over about £2 million a few years ago. And what their biggest challenge was that nobody was talking to each other. Technology has prevented some real engagement. And, what I managed to do was to really encourage that business to sit down and have a face-to-face meeting on a regular basis and be accountable for the areas that they were responsible for. And, with that process, continually talking. If you go into a meeting on week one, you have certain tasks that you have to achieve, and there's another face-to-face coming up in week 2. You don't want to sit there and say nothing's been achieved. And if it hasn't, and for all the right reasons, then you've got a collective buy-in from the business about how to manage that challenge. So it's about communication. And again, there's 2 words: communication and openness.
Thank you, Chris, because you just raised your points now. Technology, it has a good effects and a diverse effects, because I know, working with different team in remote work and all other things, it's really sometimes can be very irritating, because sometimes, if you do face-to-face work, you can see other people if they are liking or disliking your work, or that their body movements and all those things also play a vital role for a communication. But when you do online, we are just like robots. We just listen, or sometimes we don't turn on our camera. So when you don't turn on your camera when you are remote working, they don't know.
Let me give you a good example of that, which you might laugh at. So I was working with a business recently, and I suggested, and people were sending emails that sat opposite each other, to each other, instead of getting up and having a conversation. It might sound quite old school, but it was a really simple thing that I said, let's have a non-email day. So we have one day when nobody sends an email to each other. You have to get up, from your seat and you have to have a conversation. It was a bit of fun, but actually it was about driving a serious message around, let's stop this noise and let's really start engaging back. Working from home seems to be endemic now since COVID. A lot of companies are now bringing people back.
Yes.
Some of the big corporations are bringing people back into the office now. It had all its advantages, and I don't want to get into the subject. It might cause a bit of controversy, but there are lots of advantages and disadvantages on either side. But one thing that will be sure in 100 years' time and 100 years ago is people need to continually engage with other human beings. That's what we're supposed to do, not send emails to each other.
That's really fascinating. Thank you very much for your efforts to have a non-email day. I think that will work. That was a great example. So my next question, because I know that you are a deal maker, you are a partnership maker. So are partnerships part of your business model? And from your partner's perspective, what benefits make you an ideal collaborator?
Partnerships are at the heart of how I work. I'm not the kind of individual personally, not even, with my family or even when I'm working with clients who just drops in. Not that I'm saying I give my daughter a PowerPoint presentation and disappear, but, I'm not the sort of person that does that. And, clients, I hope, see me as a true commercial partner because I can bring that real clarity and delivery. I'm just as invested in their success as they are. And that trust comes from being focused on outcomes and showing up. So turning up consistently. I've worked with other consultants over the years and everything's done pretty remotely, and, people want to see your face. So it's about showing up and being present. And when I say showing up, not necessarily physically all the time, but just being contactable, being on the end of the phone if there's an issue.
That's great, Chris, because, when you start a partnerships with someone, you need to know the person better. And if you do not know the person better, sometimes the partnerships falls apart. So in relation to that, is a connecting question to you. If I am thinking for my partnership with someone, what qualities do I need to look for? In relation with the person, business, and overall?
I would say somebody that has the same values as you, actually. Somebody that shares the same values as you do. Complete openness and honesty and transparency. When things don't feel right, you feel comfortable in saying they don't feel right on both sides of the table. And I remember I was in a conversation where one of my clients said to me, somebody from finance keeps coming into my office and gives me loads of problems, and I go home with more problems than I started the day with. I said, look at it like monkeys. And this is not from me, by the way. This is a quote. I can't remember who from, but he said, consider problems like monkeys. He said, if somebody comes into your office and there's a load of monkeys jumping around and they land on your back, that's not good. He said, they need to leave with their own monkeys. So if they walk in with 2 monkeys, they leave with their 2 monkeys, but they work out a process of how to deal with it. So this is about, again, accountability, responsibility. People are very good at giving you their problems and telling you to go and solve them because it's just easy. Things in life are easy to do and they're easy not to do. There's one bit of advice, that'll be it for today. And it's easy to pass your problem over to somebody else. It's also easy not to, and to manage it and to find a way of dealing with it. But it all comes down to personality types. I mean, you have to be a little bit flexible with it, because I don't know if you know anything about color profiling, Dr. Shah, but
yes.
But I went through a process years ago. In fact, I was looking at it last night and it wrote a color profiling of me that was written in 2008. Now, I reread it in 2025 and everything it said about me still stands true. So, I don't know if any of your audience understand it. I'm sure they do. But, there are different, in the color profiling, you have red, blue, yellow, and green. And it's about what sort of person you are. Now, just because you're a red person, doesn't mean you're any better than a green, yellow, or blue person. It's just the way they think. A prime example, if I use the color profiling as an example, is a naturally blue person will be into the detail. A naturally red person will not. They will just want stuff. They just want stuff done yesterday. Whereas a blue person needs a little bit of time to reflect on that, come up with, do some thinking. So, and even though that was a process that a lot of small businesses probably can't get involved in because it is quite expensive to do that. It's nothing new. It's just that whole color profiling has come from personality types, a little bit like Myers-Briggs. And you have to really understand that when you're talking to somebody, they aren't necessarily on the same page as you because they never will be. So I think you have to just make sure you're quite balanced like that. And you have to be occasionally a bit like a chameleon when you're working with clients and with businesses and with individuals to really understand what they're thinking. That's my long answer to that one.
That's a great answer, Chris, because I think when you work with individuals, you need to know their signals. Signals means if their attitude towards you is negative or positive, you can see the body language and all other things. I know that it takes time for people to understand body languages, but if you wanted to, learn something from YouTube or any other places or reading materials, you will understand that people, they send negative vibes even when not talking. Yeah, even be raising their eyebrows or even be doing something like that okay, it's not positive. So thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for joining today's podcast. And we're going to be going a small breaks. So thank you to all the viewers for watching the ICPcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui and I have Chris Silverwood, founder Coastal Tide. For now, we are taking a brief break before diving into some fantastic insight. Stay tuned and we will be right back.
Great conversations start with thought-provoking ideas, and visionary leaders turn them into reality. Meet Dr. Shah Siddiqui, an entrepreneur, AI strategist, and business growth partner dedicated to helping professionals and companies push boundaries, innovate, and thrive to drive transformation.
Did you know that 92% of executives consider digital transformation and AI adaptation are essential for staying competitive in today's market? Furthermore, companies that use data-driven insights for decision-making also see a 23% boost in profitability compared to those that don't. Through ICPcast, we bring together the brightest minds in AI, business, finance, marketing, and other tentative fields to deliver strategies that drive measurable success.
Dr. Shah is the founder and C-level executive and leads multiple startups, including Gen Z marketing agency, Neurodivergent Business Consortium, NBC, Time Research and Innovation, TRI, and Green Threads DPP. He is AI and technology expert and helps businesses harness AI for scalability and efficiency. He is a sales and business growth strategist and the creator of the Sales Funnel Accelerator, SFA program, to guide C-suite executives to maximize conversions and revenue.
You might be surprised to learn innovation isn't just about your ideas. It's about execution. In fact, only 10% of companies successfully turn their innovative ideas into scalable strategies, while the rest struggle with execution. Businesses that focus on effective implementation rather than just ideation 3 times more likely to outperform their competitors. After working with industry leaders and disruptors, I have learned one thing: success isn't just about what you know, it's about how you apply it. That's why I created Sales Funnel Accelerator and ICPcast to provide actionable insights that you can apply right way to drive business growth and innovation.
Podcasting is now one of the most powerful tools for business influence, with 80% of listeners taking action after hearing expert insights. And when it comes to driving sales, 78% of social sellers outperform peers who don't use social media for business networking.
Are you ready to be the part of the conversation that is shaping the future of business? Let's explore innovation, strategy, and leadership together. Book your cast with me today. Hello, welcome back to ICPcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui and I have Chris Silverwood, founder Coastal Tide. We have got some exciting insight coming up. So stay with us as we dive deeper into the world of finance, technology, and innovation. Today, we are specifically talking about sales transformation for your business. So, Chris, thank you very much for joining today's live webinar.
Thank you.
And as a question to the next segment, I wanted to ask you, can you discuss a measure of struggles you have overcome and the lessons you have applied to your professional approach?
Wow, one major struggle. I could name several, or obstacle, one major obstacle that I faced during my time at a leading consumer healthcare business where I was sales and marketing director. I was responsible for leading sales performance across a very large portfolio, facing growing competition and a lot of internal complexity. The business was going through restructuring, which created uncertainty among the sales team and disrupted established customer relationships because they could feel. It's funny how that it can get felt externally because the front-facing salespeople are feeling a bit nervous about what's happening, and that affects sometimes how the relationships are. So I was tasked with stabilizing that performance effectively whilst navigating the change that the organization had to face. So I focused first on regaining clarity, revisiting how the customers were segmented, resetting KPIs, and ensuring the team had their toolbox, the right tools for them to do their job properly. More often than not, challenges are around, the big frustrations with sales teams internally and externally is they feel they don't have the tools to do their job. And that might be an effective CRM system. It might be effective product information. It might be they haven't had sufficient training, so they don't feel confident about talking about the product range. It could be a number of things. And the way I do that with clients is I do an analysis where I get, especially with this one, and is I went out with each of the individual salespeople and then had a look at their capabilities and where the issues were and how I could help train and develop them and where the gaps were. I also work closely with cross-functional teams in marketing, supply chain and medical to ensure they were all aligned, and that helped us restore consistency in messaging and ultimately in customer service. So through that, I managed to reverse declining sales trends and restore the momentum. And I say momentum, that is my favorite word, across businesses. Every business wants to get momentum, and it's how you keep chipping away and doing something and achieving something. Those achievements in small businesses don't need to be massive milestones, but they have to, as I was saying earlier in the first part of this podcast, they have to all be aligned with where that business wants to be in 2 years' time, even what they're doing today. So, that's important. So with this company that I was in at the moment, I built some trust, and that really laid the groundwork for improvement. So the key lesson was, in terms of disruption, I suppose, strong leadership means cutting through all that complexity, really giving clarity and supporting people, holding people up through that change and making them feel valued. That mindset still guides me really in how I approach transformation work with SMEs today. I don't know, building a new sales strategy or turning around team underperformance, the fundamentals are still very much the same.
Thank you, Chris. It was a great explanation. My connecting question, how do you measure the success of your work, both for your business and for your clients you serve?
For me, success is always measured in two ways: commercial impact and capability uplift. But the other thing that I was told once that's never left me was you're either making money as a business or you're saving money. So, your role as an external consultant to a client is to help them make more money or to help them save money. And that's it. And for the client, that means hitting sales metrics. Now, that could be revenue growth, margin improvement, or customer retention or acquisition, and doing so in a way that leaves their team stronger, more focused, and self-sufficient. So for my own business, success is when a client no longer needs me day to day because I've embedded the right behaviors, the structure and momentum to keep going. That for me is a success. I don't want to work with a client where I have to be there as an advisory role ongoing, because I want them to feel confident enough that they can put on their own shoes and drive the business forward themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Chris. So my next question, can you share a story of a particularly rewarding project or client success that highlights your impact?
So one particularly rewarding project was with a mid-sized healthcare business where sales had flatlined despite a strong product range, no clear commercial rhythm or drumbeat, just a lot of activity with no direction. So again, what we were saying earlier, it's a bit like your first go at clay pigeon shooting when you don't hit any of the clays that a business is, but you just keep shooting anyway because you think you might. So I work with the leadership team to define the sales strategy, introduce a structured pipeline process, and then coach the team on value-based selling, really understanding what you're doing and understanding the pain points of customers. And within 6.5 months, they saw a 23% uplift in conversion rates and re-engaged 2 major accounts that they had thought they had lost and for all intents and purposes had written off. But the real win was cultural. The team shifted from chasing deals to confidently managing growth. So rather than being reactive, being very proactive. And that's what transformation is. And it is what makes my work so fulfilling with clients.
That was a great example. I think your clients and your approach make them extraordinary and achieving these successes. So my next kind of question to you, what skills or traits do you think have been most important to your success as an innovator?
So skills and qualities have been the most critical. I would say clarity and momentum. You know, I feel I've developed a real knack for spotting what's holding a business back and then cutting through the BS or the noise to align the people and the priorities. That's what drives results. You know, I've worked across a lot of sectors, and while the products change, the patterns of underperformance, are often the same. You know, lack of focus, fragmented effort, and low confidence. You know, always looking for those things because they're all very critical in the areas that cause issues. So I really help create strategic teams, and they believe in me. You know, it's not about designing change, it's about embedding it.
That's a great point of view because, you know, design and embed is the 2 critical things that you have to do. If you're not a good designer and if you do not know how to embed things with the culture, with the mentality, it's fell apart. So in relation to design and embed culture to specifically sales growth, how do you define them or how do you change them? Because there are going to be some constraints. Some people, they don't want to change. Some people, they don't want to learn. So in that scenario, what tactics do you use?
It's not a magic wand. It's about seeing and making people understand what's in it for them. That's it. You know, it's not a book of tactics or theories. It's literally, you know, change is all about adapting to change. We can talk about change on another podcast. There's a huge amount. Change management is a whole business in itself, particularly when you get into large corporates where they're having to put, you know, change in place across people, structures, etc., you know, warehousing. So it's a big thing. Now, you know, there's a theory around adopting and adapting to change. How is that most effective? You know, the old school of thought was get on board or leave the ship. You know, I think really it's about, now sometimes that has to happen. You know, if there's a radical change in a business that's required, then obviously, and people are your biggest cost, and obviously, you know, that's when restructuring can really result in, you know, unfortunately for all the wrong and right reasons for people not to be in a business anymore. But generally, when you're working with SMEs, designing change, it's getting people on board and really explaining why you're doing it. More often than not, the frustration with people comes from the fact that they don't understand why things are happening, or they haven't been told, or it just comes from the top down. Like, you know, the CEO said it needs to happen yesterday, but doesn't explain what the benefit is to the business and why people should be supporting it. So, you know, it's about, again, openness and honesty and getting people to understand the reasons why you are doing something. That's the critical part.
That's a great explanation, Chris. And viewers, I think you're enjoying our podcast. We have a few more questions to ask, and then we will have a fun part asking Chris about some personal questions. So my next and last questions, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneur looking to make a mark in your field? Back
yourself. Make sure that you've got the experience that you can add that value. And earn the confidence by getting close to the commercial reality. Too many aspiring entrepreneurs focus on the big visions without deeply understanding how value is created and then converting that value into sales or revenue. So, you know, some areas I would say to answer that question in terms of maybe critical success factors or a bit of advice is, you know, spend time with customers. CEOs, I worked with a company that was a £30 million business. The CEO never once met any of his customers, spent all his time in the office. So, you know, spend time with your customers, learn how sales actually happen, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You know, one thing that people forget is most entrepreneurs are visionaries. and they are mavericks. It just comes with the territory. Generally, you've got a super fantastic idea. You're massively enthusiastic about it. You're going to make it happen. You don't know how it's going to happen, but you will find a way. But unfortunately, sometimes what comes with that huge enthusiasm is they don't themselves have sales experience or commercial experience. So, it's one thing that is really lacking in startups, and certainly in small size SMEs, is that, generally the CEO or the founders do not have that commercial experience themselves. They might have a great idea. So, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Go and meet customers, learn how sales happen and how to develop sales. And there's plenty of areas to be able to do that. The best leaders in this space are the ones who can think strategically but act decisively. And remember, momentum beats perfection, hands down, every time. Just keep doing, making things happen.
That was a great explanation, Chris. And I think viewers, you will love to hear more from Chris. So we're just going to go to the fun parts now. In these segments, we're going to be asking some questions to you to understand your social interactions as well as your personal life. So my first question, don't laugh and don't get angry because it's just for fun. Yeah. So my first question, do you cook?
I love cooking. So in fact, back in the day, I was fortunate enough to get it was a gift actually when I left a big company, a morning cookery session at Le Manoir de Quatre Saisons in Oxford. And I learned how to cook a souffle. I learned how to cook a number of things. And then slightly confidently, I then decided the following weekend to have a dinner party where I would attempt to share my found skills of cooking a souffle. And fortunately for me, most of them didn't end up flat. They did raise.
Next question. This is a little bit unusual question because crocodile. People eat crocodile meat. Okay. And that in Saudi Arabia or Middle East, they eat lizards. Some sort of lizards. So some sort of lizards, they called it shanda.
Right.
They eat lizards there. I ask you to choose crocodile or lizards. Which one you would like to cook?
Oh, right. That's like a question somebody asked in an interview. Like, if you were a dinosaur, what dinosaur would you be? I mean, I don't know. It's a terrifying art. I don't know there's no right or wrong answer. I think I would be a crocodile, only because they have survived for so long. They come from prehistoric times. They've survived for so long, and that's pretty much it. They are survivors, and that's why I suppose you could say that's one skill that I really admire people and in businesses is when the going gets tough, you pick yourself back up, brush yourself down, and get on with it. And I think if you smack a crocodile on a nose, it'll probably wag around a bit, but it'll come back at you. So.
Okay, but when you're cooking it, do you like crocodile or you like lizards?
Well, I haven't got a pan big enough for a crocodile. I don't know, and I'd imagine that to actually catch a crocodile in the first place would be a bit of a challenge.
That's good. Do you play footballs?
Football?
Yeah.
No. I used to be a rower, so I used to row on the Thames in Oxford years ago. I'm not a golfer, because I don't want to chase a little ball around 18 different holes for most of the day. Sorry to any golfers, by the way. So yeah, I like, I still do a bit of rowing, a bit of cycling, and recently, kayaking. Living down in Dorset, it's so lovely to be able to do that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when is a time for you to decide to get your mind cool when you are very angry? What you do? I
usually go to the gym.
Okay.
Or go for a walk. And in fact, share a little story. So last week, my father passed away about 15 years ago. And I went to a beach and watched the sunrise at 4:20 a.m. for the longest day. And it was the same day that my father passed away 15 years ago. And it was the most calming experience. So, whilst the gym is quite useful, for me, I quite like to just get into nature. And quite often, if I'm not working, you'll find me bobbing up and down in the sea, generally.
Okay. That was all the questions that I would ask you. And thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
For the Innovator Circuit podcast. So thank you for tuning Innovator Circle podcast. We hope today's conversation with Chris Silverwood, founder Postal Tide, has sparked fresh ideas and provided valuable insights to elevate your business strategies, whether it is in sales, marketing, finance, or innovation. Like our LinkedIn page, and as well as subscribe to our YouTube channels. If you subscribe our YouTube channels, it will give us a momentum. So until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep leading the way of innovation. Thank you, Chris. And
thank you very much.
Everyone, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.